guys, and welcome back. I'm Rachel O'Leary, and if you're new here, welcome. If you've been here for a while, welcome back. As you guys know, I have quite the fascination with unusual and interesting small fish. But what you may not know, or what you might if you've been around for a while, is that I also have an unhealthy fascination with plants. And I say unhealthy because I tend to go for the unusual or difficult, or those with specialized needs similar to that of my plant or of my fish obsession. Today we're going to be making a carnivorous Wabi-kusa ball, and basically I have some carnivorous plants that eat bugs only, that I have accumulated over the past several months of attending my Mid-Atlantic Carnivorous Plant Society meetings. And these particular plants are ones that won't do well outdoors all year round. In fact, they are a perfect candidate for keeping inside. So I thought today we would make a Wabi-kusa for these carnivorous plants and see how it goes. Now, this is a new thing for me. I've never made a Wabi-kusa, but I have a few different ones in mind that I'd like to do at some point this year. So I figured, why not start with this one? I mean, I still have several months until the weather outside is not suitable for these plants, but I have something in the works to show you guys soon. So make sure you're subscribed, and this will play in nicely with that. So I've gathered together some supplies, and full disclosure, the Wabi-kusa ball was sent to me by Studio Aquatica. It's a new company that specializes in making these substrate balls, and I also have one that I'm going to use at some point once I find a nice container that for a more typical Wabi-kusa. But today I want to try the carnivore ball, and what you do with these is you basically soak them with water, and it is a substrate that is wrapped in sphagnum and then wire, and then you let them soften by soaking them, and then you plant them, and then you put them in something like my glass dish here that will have some water in the bottom that keeps it hydrated, and you just let them grow, and they turn out really beautifully. As you guys know, I rarely to never recommend actual products, and this is something that you could easily make on your own. It's just a bit messy, a bit laborious, and these are affordable enough that I figured I would just try this, especially since they were willing to send me some to experiment with. Now, I did ask what this particular substrate ball is made of, because as you guys may or may not know, carnivorous plants are very particular about their conditions. They need very, very nutrient deplete soils, as the reason they've developed pitchers or sticky traps or whatever is because they utilize bugs for their nutrition. And they wouldn't tell me exactly what it was, but I did ask if it was ethically sourced, and they said yes. And I did ask if it was actually catered to carnivorous plants, and they said yes. And I asked what the pH of the soil was, and they said between 4 and 5. So that all works out great for our carnivorous plant needs. So let's get started. So one thing that's nice with these substrate balls is they come with pretty clear instructions. So basically what you need to do is get some water and get the substrate ball soaking. So we just took the bad boy out, stuck it in some water, and we'll wait for it to saturate. Now the directions say it'll take about half an hour, but I have a feeling it's going to be a bit longer than that. Another nice feature of these is that it comes with thread for you to use to wrap your ball, and it has this little thread anchor, and once this substrate ball is soft, you push this in, cover it with moss or whatever you want to use, and then you wrap this around, and then you take your planting tweezers, put little holes, and then put your plants into the substrate ball. It also comes with some pins that you can use in order to elevate these in the water column so that you could use them in an aquarium. You can hang them from the edge if it's a rimless aquarium. And that's pretty neat. I'm not going to likely be doing that. I mean, I suppose that I could use them on the edge of this if I wanted, on the edge of my bowl, but I'll have to see if that's needed. So for now, we're going to let this soak, and then we'll come back and take a look at the plants and materials that I chose. So it's only been about 5 minutes and already the substrate ball is sunk, so that's good news for me. So while I'm waiting for this Wabi-kusa ball to soak, I'm going to play around with the bowl. I don't really have any preconceived notion of what this should look like, but I have gathered together a few small manzanita sticks, some small river rocks, and I'm going to place them in the bowl in a way that the substrate ball will sit on top of them and dome out of it, and that way the plants can grow up. I don't want it to sit fully in the water, but I want it to stay hydrated. So I want it to be elevated in this front portion, like right here. So I'm going to just play around with some of these sticks and see what we can't come up with to give it a bit of support, and, you know, look a little bit more interesting. With these sticks too, I could always apply mosses to those. I have gathered together from my bog a bunch of different mosses, including purple sphagnum, regular sphagnum, some unidentified mosses I've collected over the years. This one is from this area, and I'm just gonna play around and see what I like, basically. Putting the rocks and stuff in here will help support the wood and also require less water through displacement for me to keep things adequately hydrated for my carnivorous plants. Now, I did not buy anything for this, so this is all just like leftovers I've had laying around the greenhouse, the fish room, and stuff like that. So, you know, I see most people utilize small pebbles and stuff. I'm much more of an intuitive scaper. I may need to go back out and grab some more rocks. Some of these, like these two, are just plain too big. But, you know, this is pretty simple, pretty easy. I kind of want this guy to stay up more like that. And it'll provide a spot for me to set that substrate ball. So I'm going to go out in my yard and see if I can find some more rocks. Luckily for me, around my budget bins, I use a lot of these small, smooth river stones that are completely inert, that I've collected from the local river, or I think I might even have bought a truckload. I'm not even sure at this point where they all came from, but I have quite a lot. So they're really useful for projects like this. And one of the things I've talked about a few times is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with squirreling away hardscape materials for future use, because most of it can just sit outside and it doesn't go bad. Now, you could use any kind of materials that you like. That's the beauty of all these things. You're the one that's going to have to look at it. So you should pick the stuff that appeals to you. While there are many traditional, you know, concepts about what these things should look like, I say at the end of the day, you're the one that's caring for it. You should be the one that likes it. So do what you like. So now we have a pretty good support. This stuff isn't going to wiggle around too much, and hopefully it'll provide a decent spot for me to set that substrate ball once it's planted and ready to be placed inside this bowl. I've played around with it for a bit, and I think this is what we're going to go with for now. You can see this center part has a flattish spot for the substrate ball to sit in. And hopefully that'll work out well. So the substrate ball has been soaking for about an hour now because, you know, I'm extra. And you're supposed to take this little pin that's attached to this twine, push it into the substrate ball, and then lay mosses over it and wrap with this to hold them in place. Now again, I don't have all of one moss. I'm going to do a mix. I like how that looks generally anyhow. It gives it sort of a wilder appearance. I'm going to put the sphagnums on the top. Again, this is two types. This is a purple sphagnum and a standard green sphagnum. Not that the purple one looks particularly purple. I bought it at an auction and I keep hoping it'll get more purple, but it is what it is. And then I have a bunch of these like native mosses that I've collected over time that I've been growing on the surface of my bog outside just for soil integrity. And I think they're attractive, so we'll lay them over as well. Whoops. We'll lay some of them on there as well and then get to wrapping. But not that kind of wrapping. Now, I don't know if I'm going to cover the entire substrate ball or not. Oh, this one has some sort of plant root. So we'll sort of see here. And again, I'm just sort of mixing everything together. And hopefully it'll grow out and look neat. But I guess time will tell. So make sure you subscribe. Oh boy. Again, similar to the moss support pole I made, you just wrap wherever you see a loose spot and then add in moss where you have holes. I have made a mess of this. There we go. So this is my wrapped moss ball. I just finished wrapping it around and then tied it to itself. And it will sit in here like so. So for plants, I have a few different that I've chosen for today. I have this weed that was growing in one of my aquatic planters in my temporary bog, and I think the flowers are pretty, so we're going to stick that in there. Then I have a Drosera capensis, which is this taller guy with the red, and then some Drosera spatulata. And I may end up going out and grabbing more stuff from the bog, but there's quite a lot of little plants in here. So we'll start with taking this big dude and cleaning him up. These guys are kind of interesting. They grow with this, like, they don't really have a very substantial root structure is what I'm trying to say. So this is the capensis. I've just trimmed up all this bottom to take off any of the dying of these sticky traps. You can see that this is a pretty healthy plant. It has a mosquito stuck to it right here, right there, which is kind of cool, and it is flowering, which is quite nice. So what I'll do is take my aquascaping pincers and on the top stick them in there, wiggle them around, and make a hole for this dude. Now the reason I'm using sundews is because most of the carnivorous plants, things like Venus flytraps and pitcher plants, need a winterization period, and these particular sundews do not. They don't require any cool down period, which means this Wabi-kusa for them should be successful year round if I can get it to plant in there. So that is it placed right on the top because it's the primary plant in this thing. And then we'll take some of the spatulatas around it. But first I think I'm just gonna stick this little weed in, again, because I think it's pretty and it'll add a nice foil to this capensis in height. I'll put that towards the back. Again, just taking my pincers and creating a hole to then take the roots and shove them in there. Now again, I've never done this before, so I'm not sure if I'm necessarily doing it right or not, but I figure it'll be a fun experiment. That's those two. Clean up some of this mess because sundews have sticky leaves and I do not want them sticking to all this dirt. Okay. So that's two so far. I think it's looking pretty good. And I'm going to pull out some of the, oh look, there's a baby capensis in here right there. I'll leave this alone. I think I'll pull out some of these smaller spatulatas. You can see that it's also flowering. I'm probably going to leave this parent plant alone and just grab some of these little babies in here. And then I'll have more of these to share next season. Oh my God, it's so cute. Not sure if you guys will be able to see this or not, but there are teeny tiny baby spatulatas. I'm using my Beauty Guru hand to try and show you. So stinking tiny and cute, and I'll probably just try and stick them into the moss instead of trying to plant them, because that way I don't damage them because they're so small. Grab one more. I'm going to keep this pretty simple until I see how it goes. So this is what I have, and then we'll place it into our bowl here, and I'll fill it up with rainwater, adjust the hardscape and stuff as needed so that it sits how I want it, and then this substrate ball will keep these plants hydrated. And it should be pretty neat. Let me go ahead and fine tune this and then we'll come back for final looks. So here's the final product. Again, this is my first one, so be kind. But you can see that I added some floaters, Azolla and the other one whose name I can't remember, from out in my bins. You can see how just gorgeous this capensis is. I love this plant, and I do keep it outdoors year-round, though it does completely die in the winter, and then because it flowers and drops seeds, they grow back. So I'm excited to try this guy inside year-round. It's a very, very great carnivorous plant for beginners. And then, of course, we have the teeny tiny spatulatas that are just adorable, and hopefully this will do well. You can see all the various mosses and my weed that I added. It's possible I may add some other bog type plants in here eventually, but again, I kind of want to see how it goes. I think it looks neat. It was super easy to do. It was super fun to do, and I think it'll be a nice addition to my indoor plant goals that I have, which I'm excited to continue to share with you guys. If you like content like this, let me know down in the comments and give this video a thumbs up. My algorithm with YouTube could use all the help it can get. And again, I'd like to try this with some of my aquatic plants. So let me know if you're interested in me building a more formal Wabi-kusa for you. And thanks again to Studio Aquatica for supplying me with this substrate ball. It was very easy to use. Your directions were quite good, and I really appreciate it.